reveals his plans to his servants, the prophets.
7. I see riots and protests in many nations. The citizens of many countries shall be in disagreement with their government and shall take to the streets. Some of the major reasons shall be unfavorable living standards and high prices due to the collapse of economies. Another reason I see is poor national security and bad governance. 13. Pray against civil wars. I see citizens of many nations rising up in violence against their governments.
I have protected every living president. Carter, Clinton, Bush, Obama, Trump, Biden. But nothing could have prepared me for January 6th, 2021.
We're going to try and get compliance, but this is now effectively a riot.
49 hours declaring it a riot.
It is no secret that the United States is divided. For the now disunited States of America, as some US scholars and Western media call it, the idea of an American breakup is not that far-fetched. With the midterm elections just over a week away, Americans' concerns are mounting over whether the US is on a trajectory to a new civil war. Just last week, the husband of the nation's third most senior politician, House Speaker Nancy Pelosi, was attacked in their home. Police say she was the target.
When we don't just disagree with people, but we start demonizing them, making wild, crazy allegations about them, that creates a dangerous climate. And if elected officials don't do more to explicitly reject that kind of rhetoric, if they tacitly support it or encourage their supporters to stand outside voting places armed with guns, dressed in tactical gear, more people can get hurt.
According to a recent Time article, 41% of Biden voters and 52% of Trump voters polled in favor of red or blue states, seceding from the Union to form their own separate country. 30% of Republicans and 11% of Democrats were ready to resort to violence to save the country. That is to say, approximately 20 million Americans are ready to fight in a country with 400 plus million guns. In early October, the New York Times quoted a data entry specialist as saying he worries something will happen around the November elections that will be akin to January 6 but much more violent, where armed protest groups from both sides of the political spectrum come to blows.
The events I witnessed on January 6th was the worst attack on law enforcement and our democracy that I've seen in my entire career.
We were repeatedly being told by the National Guard at the national level that we did not have authorization.
Who blocked the National Guard from coming to the aid of my officers on January 6th? Why didn't the FBI and Department of Homeland Security issue a joint intelligence bulletin regarding January 6 threats?
Since the Capitol riots on January 6, 2021, civil war references have been growing in the US. According to experts, the US is at a greater risk of civil conflict than during the Great Depression. Increasing discussions over a new civil war are an embodiment of Americans' concerns and anxieties about the multiple crises the US is being confronted with. Sharp division between Republicans and Democrats has become the largest weakness and problem of the US today. Political polarization, social division, and economic hardships all could make Americans go radical. The US is currently facing many challenges, including inflation, racial and gender inequality, crimes, drug abuse, climate change, immigration, and so on. If Americans fundamentally distrust each other and try to veto any solutions the other has to offer, then all of these problems will become more difficult, if not impossible, to solve. For a long time, in areas such as fight against epidemic, economic development, electoral reform, and gun control, the two US parties confront each other fiercely. It's increasingly difficult and impossible for the disunited States of America to fix its social woes and have effective governance. The divided US is currently like a powder keg. Analysts have warned that the US has more guns than people, and in a heavily armed society, radical forces who feel frustrated could easily resort to violence. No one will be surprised if another Capitol riot, a similar event, or even an American secession happens.
As in the prophecies I gave you, when I spoke about some nations I see having civil wars, one of the nations I'm talking about is the USA. It may seem very impossible, but that's the agenda of the enemy if prayers are not made. The devil wants to destabilize this nation because destabilizing the USA means destabilizing the world. And with all what is going on right now, if the USA plunges into a civil war, there shall be chaos all around the world. Many nations have not reacted up to now in bombing and other invasions just because they don't know what reply they shall get from the USA. And right now I see dark clouds gathering over the skies of the USA, and the Lord is saying, let prayers be made for this nation to prevent a civil war. Let prayers be made for this nation to prevent a civil war. Because if the USA plunges into a civil war, then there shall be no peace worldwide. I repeat, if the USA plunges into a civil war, there shall be no peace worldwide. Most nations have not acted up till now because they are in fear of the reply of the USA. But if this very nation plunges into a civil war, then there shall be no fear of anyone out there, and every nation shall decide to do what they want at any moment. And this is not to say the USA is the one responsible for peace in the world right now. But what I'm trying to say is, without the USA, there shall be no peace. Peace comes only from God. But also there are nations who through their military force have been able to keep the world in some peace and stability. Even though they may do this for their own interest, but at least it preserves some chaos in the world. But as I tell you, if the USA goes into a civil war, then we shall find chaos all around the world. Let's put this nation in our prayers and pray against a civil war, because I see the citizens rising against the government in the USA. I repeat, I see the citizens rising against the government in the USA. And if this comes to pass, then we shall be getting into more trouble than the one we find ourselves in already. Take this to heart and pray for the USA. Pray with love and a burden in your heart for this nation, for God to preserve it of the chaos coming. Because the USA in an internal conflict means chaos in the whole world. God bless you. That was Prophet Samuel Fombang. Shalom.